If a university spins out a startup, the local economic impact is like 50% greater than if we just publish a paper and don't protect the intellectual property at all.
Hello, I'm Bruce Berman, host of Understanding IP Matters, the acclaimed series that provides leading innovators and experts the space to share their IP story, the good, the bad, and the incredible. The artificial intelligence train has left the station. If AI's goal is broad adoption, it will be informed by respect for intellectual property rights and rule of law. We know that Gen AI can save time and help us to think, but it cannot think for us or own IP, at least not yet. AI adoption will benefit many, but will come at a steep cost to privacy and jobs. An abundance of composure and legal expertise will be needed to assure it provides the benefits we need without the loss of control we fear. My guest today, Ian McClure, is an architect of AI change. As Vice President of Research and Innovation at the University of Kentucky, Ian directs initiatives that facilitate discoveries, generate IP returns, and support partnerships. He leads the 30,000 student school's $200 million investment in AI adoption, as well as the university's offices of technology and innovation and entrepreneurship. Ian is immediate past president of the Association of University Technology Managers. He began his career as an attorney in mergers and acquisitions and intellectual property transactions. He helped to build from the drawing board to 30-plus employees IPXI, the world's first financial exchange for IP and technology rights. Ian teaches law and business of IP management at University of Kentucky and Chicago Kent College of Law. Welcome, Ian. I am looking forward to a lively discussion.
Me
How
too.
are you?
I'm good, Bruce. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Where are you speaking from today, if I may?
I'm right here in my office on campus at the University of Kentucky in beautiful Lexington, Kentucky, horse country, bourbon country, whichever you favor, or maybe both. Right here on campus.
Ian, you lead a community of researchers, educators, and students at UK who are learning to incorporate AI into their work and life. What are the primary challenges from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Bruce. At an institution like ours, we're an R1 research university, also the land grants university of the state of Kentucky. The challenges are not just many, but they're varied. And necessarily so. You just mentioned staff, students, and faculty, and there's even more people beyond that are part of a university community like ours, and a number of stakeholders. And so we cross a very broad spectrum of use cases, levels of sophistication and understanding, and also excitement and inclination and fear around AI. We're a great little melting pot here, and frankly, probably an amazing place to study the adoption of AI. For example, students, we have about a third of our incoming class next year, our undergraduate class, is first generation students. And many of those are first generation students from the state of Kentucky, mostly rural Kentucky. And so you can juxtapose that against over 2,000 sophisticated scientists and researchers here on our campus that have been using AI, to be honest, for more than a decade, or a couple decades,
Wow.
or even developed.
So it's a pretty diverse population.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say are the biggest impediments to adoption? To me, they would seem to be cultural as well as technological.
Yeah, both. Cultural, technological, mindset, access is a big one. So I just mentioned a number of first generation students. Everyone seemingly has access. If you have a mobile device, and you could download ChatGPT or any generative AI tool, but you'd be amazed at the level of access needed to do research in a certain way and build and host LLMs on campus. And so access is a very different thing depending on where you are at an institution like ours relative to AI. So culture is a huge one. Think about the 19 colleges we have here at our university that span from engineering and medicine to social work and education. And so we've got STEM, we've got social sciences and humanities and arts, very different takes on the impact that AI can or is having on their field. And so very different mindsets. And so the approach or the strategy that we've been developing here necessarily, leans into all of those different mindsets. And it has to be flexible.
So where did you start? About when did you start implementing the AI plan, and where is it currently?
About a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, our board of trustees, like every university at the time, was sort of trying to figure out, what is this going to mean for us? What should we do? So our board of trustees had the foresight of about a year and a half ago, sort of bringing forth a mandate that they wanted us to be the partner of choice to advance AI for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And so that mandate landed with me, as well as some of my co-conspirators here. Our president asked me and my partner Heath Price, who is our vice president for partnerships, to lead something that was, in his words, intelligent, orderly, and strategic. We set out to sort of start designing a strategy that was holistic. And I remember at the time we had done some benchmarking, and there's some great empirical studies. EDUCAUSE led one of them, where they interviewed about 700 university leaders. And this was early 2024. And I think over half of them responded that they were approaching this cautiously. And
Right.
less than a fifth had said that they were doing something holistic. There was just things happening, but not holistic.
So where are you now, Ian, with regard to the implementation? About halfway through, do you think, or beginning,
So
or where are you?
implementation, we have just launched. It took us about a
Mm,
year to design. We
right.
announced it about 6 months ago. We call it the Commonwealth AI Transdisciplinary Strategy. It's a broad framework. It's a large investment, and I can talk about that investment and the partnerships that we've brought toward close in with us to work on this with us. But when we announced it about 6 months ago, that was really the beginning of implementing a series of strategic initiatives, as we call them, that is part of this strategy. For us, it's a 3-year strategy. It might get to 5 years, depending on the pace of adoption, depending on the receptiveness of the various stakeholders that I mentioned. But we look at this as, this is the moment in time. This is the transformation era right now for AI. We will soon hit a point of ubiquity where we're not literally calling it AI anymore. It's just software.
Right.
But this era right now is what we are set up to be prepared for.
So success is measured. I'm going to ask you how you measure success, not just, I would think, in terms of time savings or eliminating jobs, but how do you measure success? What's your criteria
Yeah.
and metrics?
So it's probably won't be surprising that we have varied metrics that map to various of
Yes.
those stakeholders. So just like any organization, we will be measuring efficiencies and productivity. That maps more to the operations of the university. We are a large institution with 33,000 staff, lots of administrative backbone, and a lot of that can be made more productive. So part of it is measurement there. But for an institution like ours, we measure many things: the qualitative impacts on student success, their ability to leave this university with being prepared for a very different demand for skills that is happening right now, and evolving faster
Hmm.
than probably any era of skills demands that we've seen in the past number of decades. Healthcare. So we have 6 hospitals. Our health system is part
Wow.
of this, and so improvement in quality of care, throughput. Can we reach more patients with the same amount of people and resources? Can we increase the quality of care by making more accurate our decisions and the information that we make those decisions with? Those kind of things. So we're measuring many things across the entire institution. Some metrics are as small as points of engagement and how many people take our trainings. So we're setting up an entire hub for asynchronous and synchronous learning and training opportunities, because we don't want to just provide resources. We want to make sure people are using them appropriately.
Using them. Right.
So how many people and at what rate are they taking and completing those trainings? We'll have incentives for completing those. In other words, you get access to certain tools if you complete those trainings, things like that. And then engagement points. And so part of our strategy is to create lots of engaging activity. So things to think about. So students, we could just leave them to their own resources and they would just adopt generative AI tools as they are. But we will be developing AI residence halls and hackathons and accelerators and things that are intentionally engaging students in the learning environment, even if they don't realize it's learning that they're doing, because some of
Interesting.
this will be fun. And we'll be incentivizing them to do it in various ways. Some of it for credits, some of it for things like we have a really neat program called UK Invests. We launched it in partnership with Fidelity, where students come on to campus and they get money in an account right day one, and they learn how to invest those funds. And so it's called UK Invest Bucks. And so students love that, and we can incentivize them to do certain things on campus, and they get bucks in their account to invest with and to save.
Great.
And so things like that, we'll be incentivizing students to engage, to learn, and to enter into experiential opportunities so that they can
Yeah.
leave here not just having taken some courses, but truly becoming builders, understanding of what it means to be truly a part of the data science of AI,
Right.
and those kinds of things.
People are naturally and somewhat are fearful of
Mm.
AI. It's coming to take their jobs or severely change their life, or it's going to invade their privacy. What do you do or say to reassure people about AI and the future of AI?
I think the first is to acknowledge that those fears are valid and reasonable. You know, a university like ours, we represent a very large community that has very valid and reasonable fears of the risks of AI. And some of it is just sort of the trepidation of what does this mean for me? Just not even misconception, just not knowing, kind of not being able to predict how this is going to change our life. So education process is big, listening is big, and for us, developing a framework as we have through CATS AI that allows many voices to be at the table, so that we're building a structure that is responsive to very different inclinations to do this. For example, the trainings that we'll offer, we have fast track, if you will, trainings for those that are excited, ready to start build your own agents, do vibe coding, understand what coding is. But then we also have, trainings that are just about what does AI mean, and what are the ethics of AI for good, and things like that. So for an institution like ours, it is necessarily done broadly matrixed, and with a lot of listening. And so it takes a structure, a governance structure to do that.
Now you're an AI person. I know you come out of AI. You've done a lot
Yeah.
of work with patents and other rights. So the IP dimension of AI often gets pushed aside. Aside from fair use by the aggregators, that's one issue. What are some of the IP issues that you face or see, and how do you deal with them?
Yeah, great question. And now, again, perhaps one of the best places to study the intersection between um, protection of intellectual property, and the security aspects of AI, and then the culture of embracing adoption of AI as a university. You know, we are in the business of discovery, right? We're also, because we're an academic medical center, we're also in the business of healthcare and have patient data. So confidentiality, privacy, security has to be at the forefront of what we do. Now, we have publicly made known, we have now flown this flag that says we are an AI university, which means we are running towards it, we're embracing it. The inevitability of it is now what is driving us to be prepared for it. That means that from an intellectual property standpoint, we have to have the infrastructure, that we have to have the protocols, the communication and process protocols, Both of those are incredibly important here, we're already in a wild, wild west, right? We're already in an
Yeah.
era where agentic tools are being used, adopted, and even built with data of ours. We know that. And so how quickly can we not just govern, because it's important where we don't want to do what Europe jumped out and did as an example
Right.
and just go straight into tight governance where you might limit the innovation promise, right, of this moment in time. Yeah, and so for us, we do believe that setting a structure, a framework that can support the governance is the foundation of how we take the lid off this and then do it embracing the innovation promise of it. And so infrastructure for one, IT has been sort of at this table with me designing this from day one, not from just a can we power this and can we support the storage aspects, but also can we capture what we need to capture through sophisticated use of private enclaves, synthetic data, things like that that allow us to research, develop, and innovate at the same time that we are ensuring protection of intellectual properties, which are the intellectual property of the university, but then also the data of our scientists and of others, because we do lots of data sharing, right? When you do collaborative research, there's all kinds of materials, biospecimens, data coming in that are not owned by us. And we have to ensure protection of those things. And then patient data, right? So we have mountains of data that is not necessarily owned by us, but we have to be incredible stewards of that data to ensure privacy, while at the same time, AI tool, the promise of what AI can do to improve the quality of care with that data, using that data, is a key driver also. So that balance is critical.
Yeah, yeah, it's a challenge to respect IP rights, but I personally think that if IP is incorporated into AI, or respect for IP and rule of law, it will be good for AI and AI's development. Otherwise, it's just like the Wild West, and you're just grabbing stuff. The aggregators are grabbing, and the folks who are the platforms are, and then we're grabbing. And it just sort of doesn't matter who owns it. It's just this is just what you
Yeah.
do, and that creates a culture of kind of a
Oh yeah.
nihilism, if you will.
Yep.
So, are you? Do you have to take licenses when you're using AI extensively? Do you feel, or is that built into the databases that you're
Yeah.
using?
Yeah. It's a great question. The number of AI tools that are flooding sort of from outside in that need access to data, that want access to data to improve their own models. It's a daily thing right now. That pipeline
Sure.
is full. So template operative language, right? We're getting really good at what language to use in the in license or in the in transfer of these tools, vendor procurement agreements that have now data licenses, within
Built
them,
in.
effectively
Hmm.
use licenses, and then what can you use with the results and products of using those tools. It's interesting. I really think, as you know, I'm an intellectual property enthusiast my entire career. And I'm a big proponent of the value of intellectual property to drive innovation, right? I know many people are on the other side of this fence that think that IP is some just barrier or it's a limitation to sort of open source productivity and advancements. This is a true opportunity right now for intellectual property to again prove itself as the scaffolding that is necessary to do innovation productively. To the point you made earlier about sort of trampling over, is AI just going to allow us all to sort of just trample over each other and rush forward? Yes, and that's perhaps some of the fear that some people have about it, where the push for open source is very strong, and probably not even incorrect. Like the pace of evolution of the models through the open source mechanisms is amazing. And
Yeah.
but also that creates the opportunity for intellectual property to again prove itself as necessary scaffolding to make clear competitive incentives which we know, especially in the commercialization world, are necessary to move something from the research sphere to the public benefit sphere, right? Those things don't just happen because people like to do good things. Those things happen because people are incentivized by commercial incentives and rights. And so we have another opportunity here where the jurisprudence on AI notwithstanding, it won't be established for some time, and we're getting closer and closer. Things are, we're getting more and more rulings that are allowing us to get predictability in how we're managing these things. But it's necessary, and we're going to find that it's necessary at the pace of this because we were in 3 years ago, we were in a stage where maybe there were 6 or 7 ready to use LLMs in this world, right? And now there were thousands of them being built, but truly the generative AI tools that we're adopting are built on just a few really well developed LLMs. We're now in a sphere where there are dozens of LLMs being developed right here on our campus.
And
And
SLMs
SLMs,
too,
right?
right?
Exactly. I mean, all kinds,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And being hosted and being used in tools. The only chance we have to actually ensure clarity of collaborative lines and competitive incentives and the things that we know are the necessary frameworks to ensure that we get to actual public benefit in a way that people understand is through intellectual property. I mean, to be honest.
And now you at UK, I believe you went with ChatGPT Microsoft as your partner. Is that
Correct,
you
but
would
not necessarily
looking at
ChatGPT, but Copilot, which is actually
Copilot?
written on
Okay.
top of Claude and ChatGPT models. Yes.
Interesting. And you said that you told me recently you were familiar with Google's Gemini and other Gen AI platforms. So what did you learn in comparing the various platforms? Why did you go with who you did, for
Yeah,
example?
no, it's a great question. So going back to when our board of trustees asked us to be the partner of choice, in that we knew we couldn't do this alone, and that we needed a partner of choice to work with us enterprise wide, not just providing technological resources,
Right.
but also around the training and the know-how. Right, frankly, right. There's only a few companies that have been out in front developing these capabilities and these models for a couple of decades, Microsoft being one of those. Now, we met with, I think, every one of those companies that is a part of that race, if you will, or has been a part of that race. All of them have fantastic technologies, right? It's none of this is for sort of a lack of effectiveness of some of these tools. Now, some of these tools are very different. Some of the models are very different. I think we're headed to a point where many of these models will not have very large or perceptible differences. But for now, certainly there are some that might have different outcomes for different use cases. That wasn't so much, to be honest, a part of our decision making. We were looking more for a partner that would believe in our vision for Kentucky, that understood the culture and mindset shift aspect of this, that could think enterprise wide with us and provide some of that scaffolding and governance support that I mentioned relative to provision of resources, but then also providing things like the training and the security and the connectivity to cloud for predictability of spend, a lot of those things. And in the end, certainly we felt that Microsoft was the partner that we needed to sit side by side with through this.
And it's kind of a moving target. I mean, they all are well resourced or
Oh
well
yeah,
capitalized, the big guys, but you want to make sure they're committed to being around. That was sort of an issue with software early on, that you might have a great software vendor, but you don't know if they're going to be around in a year or two. It was moving so quickly. But these folks, one way or another, they're going to be in this world.
yeah. That was a big one for us. Longevity. I mentioned this Cat's AI, strategy is a 3 to 5 year strategy because we believe this is the transformation era, the agentic to AGI transformation era. But make no mistake, AI is here to stay. So the
Right.
longevity of this is critical. And so we've done a lot of research into the market. We've looked at who's in this for the long haul, who has a
Hmm.
position in this market to withstand some of this fast-paced evolution. And that's, certainly we felt good about Microsoft's position in that, amongst many other things that we use to make that decision.
Ian, as immediate past president of Autumn, that's the Association of University Technology Managers, for those of you who are not aware. It's a major and a very important organization of tech transfer executives throughout universities and other research institutions. Um, you dealt with technology transfer and licensing issues across many universities, large and small. What would you say are the key concerns for tech transfer executives
Yeah.
today?
Sure. Well, so for one, it's the effects on intellectual property, and security and confidentiality, and what is patentable and what's not. Are we just in another sort of computer readable medium era of sort of patent drafting, or are we in something that is allowing for a whole new scope of protectability? And how do we do that when tech transfer typically starts when a disclosure or a discovery, comes in the front door of the tech transfer process, and then you start evaluating it. Um, I would say in the last 2 years, we've seen a stark shift in what those disclosures look like from a data use, collaborative data use, and AI tool use in producing the discovery or getting to a point of discovery. That brings in many questions about not really so much as just inventorship, but ensuring that we've gotten to the bottom of the collaborative aspect, the security aspect, the data reviewing the data sharing agreements that allowed us to get to the point of discovery, and that sort of chain of contract privity, if you will. So that's one. That's certainly it's created some additional effort and readiness there. I think the other one is the pace, and the not just the pace of discovery, but the pace of getting from discovery to market, right? So
Hmm.
look at just the activity from the FDA on the tools that it is now approving, and allowing. So the things that typically we would get maybe an early small molecule getting to mechanism of action, maybe we're patenting 2, 3 patents over a 3 to 5 year period around a drug discovery or drug development. And now you can actually start looking at proof of concept to pre-IND studies that can get done much faster, and with much more data samples, which is fascinating, right? And that's awesome. Those are the positive AI for good impacts that we really want to see. There's probably no more promising impact of AI than in research, and the pace of research.
Yeah. Many universities strive for spinouts. Like MIT is a good example. Companies created from their basic research that have the potential to raise capital and be monetized, but they can take time to develop and few succeed. What's your thinking about
Yeah.
spinouts at UK?
Yeah, certainly we're a big proponent of spinouts. That's a
Hmm.
core of our strategy in tech transfer. Not just here, that we're not unique in that. Certainly, we're seeing this nationwide over the past 10 to 15 years. We've seen an increase in the number of startups being spun out of universities, or the number of licenses going to startups for intellectual property. We've seen a small dip in that the past 2 years, and I think really that was because we had a COVID bubble where our faculty had more time to spend on startups, and so we saw more of them spun out. But it's still key to our strategy, and I think necessarily so. I just saw some really fascinating data. I'm on the advisory board of this program at Northwestern called Bridge, by the Northwestern Innovation Institute. Some really fantastic
Okay.
scientists. It's an NSF-funded initiative. They, through their tools that they've developed, just showed our advisory board some data which evidences very clearly that if a university spins out a startup, the local economic impact is like 50% greater than if we just publish a paper and don't protect the intellectual property at all. And then, of course, there's a spectrum in between that, between, okay, you do protect it, and then you license a different company, and you patent it, and then you use that patent to partner with someone for additional research. But what we do know, and it's now data supported, that the economic impact is localized when you do a startup. And that's really important to a university like ours, right? We're a public land grants university supporting the state of Kentucky. And that puts fire behind us to let's ensure that we're doing startups because,
You need the income.
well, it's job creation. It's
Job creation, sure.
startups attract other outside funding from the region, outside the region, those things.
I was talking to Laura Peter. She was the deputy director under Andre Yanku of USPTO, and now she's head of sort of a similar job to yours, a VP of Innovation Research at University of North Carolina. And she was saying that it's hard. It's still a I wouldn't say an effort, but it's still necessary to help researchers understand the need to file provisionals before they publish. They don't sort of get that. They think it's like hoarding the information, and you're going to undermine good research if you worry about patents. What's your experience with that?
Rightly so. This gets to the mindset of academicians and researchers and their incentives, right? So they're incentivized to publish. That's
Right.
how you get
That's right.
promoted. That's how you get tenure. It is still focused and biased towards research that turns into publications that generate citations and additional publications. So publication, this is go back to the Northwestern data I just mentioned. The publication to publication data, the impact actually is greater on an international scale. And so impacts or benefits run internationally and not localized to regional.
Right.
When that happens.
They think it's antithetical, some of the researchers, that they're not sharing their information. And she says it's not wrong to share, but you just have to file provisional first and make sure you're protected. And that probably researchers should be incentivized based on patents. Not that they should just file patents willy-nilly, but file good patents for good reasons, and that should be part of their, maybe their compensation or their ascent in academia.
Absolutely. So, and this is to me, this is the biggest needle mover in the impact of research and tech transfer and the evolution of a university, in my opinion, which is the ability to make the promotion and tenure process removing some bias towards outside activities and increase incentive to do things like partner with industry, entrepreneurship, commercialization, patenting. And we're seeing this right now. I'm actually a leader, part of the leadership of an initiative called Promotion and Tenure for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, or PTIE.
Oh, that's great.
PTIE.org. It was originally an NSF-funded initiative to Oregon State University. Dr. Rich Carter and I've partnered with him and some others to move this out from a series of recommendations that we published about 2 or 3 years ago, now into an implementation strategy where we would take boots on the grounds to universities across the country to help them see the value and also what the implementation science aspect of this looks like, to sort of just turn a few knobs, if you will, to open up and make more broadly accessible promotion and tenure for those kinds of activities. Not just patents, because I think once you incentivize just patents, now you're going to get a bunch of junk and people will just bring things forward because they're just trying to get a patent. But actually placing emphasis on partnering with industry, participating in entrepreneurship, and then mentoring students and graduate students and postdocs to engage in entrepreneurship activities, and then commercialization. And I'm excited, actually. This PTI effort, I think, is again a real potential needle mover in the larger scheme of evolution of universities to be more impactful on the economy and also in a global scale, our country's economy. as we sort of look at the locale of impact and the variety of impact that can come from university activity and research.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds that way. It sounds fascinating. Yeah, some of the universities are doing things like that, but there may be more in urban areas or have a relationship with finance and Wall Street. Columbia, I'm thinking, is one.
Yeah.
Historically or typically, universities avoid stick
Mm.
licensing. They're more in the carrot licensing world. And for those of our listeners who aren't sure what that means, carrot license is more collaborative license where someone wants to take the license and there's not a sense that you have to. A stick is a license taken under some duress or after litigation or with a different mindset. What's your thinking about that? Now, I've heard from some of the tech transfer managers, the successful ones, that if you don't occasionally enforce your patents, if you feel they're infringed and they're good, then you're not really in business. Then you're just waiting for someone to pay you, but not getting paid for what you create.
My favorite saying, Bruce, and I teach in our College of Law here, and have some really bright, law students and business students that I tell this to. My favorite mantra that I tell them at my first class, and I repeat it every class, is the value of intellectual property exists if and to the extent it's enforceable. Now, enforceability is not just about the scope of that patent or the language of what it covers. It's also about your willingness to enforce it and your ability to enforce it through the system that we have, the regime, the court system. And
Isn't that antithetical or uncomfortable for the board of trustees? They don't want to sue people, especially potential donors or, et cetera.
Yeah, so certainly that's been a challenge and a debate, if you will, at universities across the world, which is, we are neutral research, education, and service organizations. We have lots of relationships through our endowments and donors and research partners that you don't want to upset with any enforcement activity. On the flip side of
Exactly.
that, the value of what's coming out of research at these institutions. We do $500 million of research each year, and
Wow.
producing potential cures for cancer, potential medical devices that will save lives. I will say I'm blue in the face that the ability to get those things to market is dependent upon the amount of respect that the world will have for the intellectual property that protects those things. Because if there is no
Right.
respect for the IP that covers those things, then why would anyone collaborate with the university to take those license rights and spend hundreds of millions of dollars to get those things to market, right?
That's a good segue to my next question. How does UK identify areas of research to focus on? Now, I'm sure the professors, the researchers themselves have areas they're interested in, and I imagine they want to pursue that. But there are also areas that industry feels are more useful. They're interested in certain cures for certain diseases. How do you marry those two things? Do you encourage your researchers to look at what companies
Yeah.
want, or what's the
That's
process?
so that is actually that's just something that my team here at UK, we're called UK Innovate. We work
Right.
on day in and day out, which is this notion of use-inspired research versus
Right.
curiosity-driven basic research. Now, basic research is critical, right? As a practice, it's very important that we keep sacred the practice or the exercise of basic research, curiosity-driven academic research, because that's actually what helps us do paradigm shift type things and not just incremental benefit type things. There's two different, right? Most corporations, their R&D is focused on incremental benefits or incremental improvements to products to where they're headed, whereas most basic research at universities is paradigm shift, change the world with one discovery kind of thing, right? Whereas most of it is unproven until proven. So the strategy of what we invest in, it's dependent upon a number of things. Some of it is the expertise that we have on campus, the faculty, the talent that we've been able to attract. What are they good at, and how can they use that expertise to go get federal or state or other types of funding to fund the research? So some of it is born born out of sort of where the funding is coming from, and can we attract that funding to promise that we will be good stewards of it and produce things with a value with it. But the other part of it is also, are we doing the research in a responsive manner to need and demand, and in alignment for us as a public university, in alignment with our state interests, right? So we have an economy here in Kentucky. Everyone knows horses and bourbon, but we're also an advanced manufacturing hub. We're a supply chain supercluster. Three of the largest logistics hubs in the country are based right here at UPS, Amazon Air, and DHL. Why? Because we're right in the middle. Geographic proximity is sort of an immutable thing for us, and we take advantage of that. So we want to be doing research that's responsive to the economy here, right? What are their needs? And AI is a big part of that, right? How is AI changing supply chain? Well, we're doing a lot of research around supply chain innovation, adopting new AI and data tools. As an example, to develop circularity and upcycling of materials and increase productivity in those things. So there's a balance. The curiosity-driven basic research, that's a bit sacred, and we do need that. But my team also is focused on helping faculty understand use-inspired research opportunities, and we bring industry close into us. We ask industry to bring us their problem statements that we might have expertise that can focus on potential solutions, and then we put together research projects that way as well.
Like to ask people on understanding IP matters, what was your first encounter with IP? Was it positive, negative, or neutral? When was you first become aware of what IP rights are?
Oh, I have a good story in this. So I was already sort of curious about IP. I founded the IP Law Society when I was in law school at a small law school called Chapman University School of Law in Orange, California. So I was very interested in the role that intellectual property was playing in development of markets and businesses. But then I went into corporate M&A because I had to pay off my student loans. And one of the first deals that I worked on, I remember I was a first-year associate. I billed hundreds of hours in a year to a very large merger between two large energy companies. And I'll never forget, I had billed about 1,000 hours to this, spent weekends, nights, and then all of a sudden the merger fell apart because the two sides could not agree on the value of the intellectual property portfolio involved. The company acquiring another company, they just could not agree on they were hundreds of millions of dollars apart on the value of this IP portfolio. And I said, well, that's odd, because we can agree on the price of everything. How could we not agree on the value of intellectual property? There's no market price. There's no benchmarks.
Right.
It's a clandestine
No
field.
no comparables,
That's right,
right?
no comps. So I said,
Yeah.
well, who's working on this? And I looked, I just did some research and looked up, and the very first Ocean Tomo public patent auction
Right.
was being held like a few weeks in advance of this. And I was like, well, I have to go there. I need to find out how people are doing this. And that was my foray. I went out there, I met a bunch of people, I started talking, and I fell in love with the role that intellectual property plays, the market for IP, the strategic asset that it is, and the reasons why different companies and stakeholders put value on it, which are very
Right.
different value propositions to different holders.
What final thought would you like to leave with listeners today?
Prepare for this carefully, but also whatever organization you're a part of that's likely, struggling through how are we preparing and what we're doing. Do it in a way that acknowledges the very different inclinations about where we're headed, but at the same time embrace it. Because there's an inevitability here. The very important part is that this generation that is going through like high school into college right now, they're going to be entering into an economy that looks so different than what we have been used to over the last 10 years. So embrace that and acknowledge that, and work on this pace of change, and eliminating some fears where you might look at this really as opportunity. Mark Andreessen had a great talk about how this is about task loss, not job loss, and we will have job change, but certainly the task loss will allow us to get to higher levels of value proposition and productivity. And then finally, the role that intellectual property plays in all of this. To me, this is still about the scaffolding and the governance that is necessary to really take the lid off of AI. Some of that is security and infrastructure. And the other part of this is strong intellectual property systems and approaches and rights.
Thank you, Ian. We'll see you in Columbus on April 23rd. You're going to be on a panel at the IP Awareness Summit, which my organization, Center for IP Understanding, is hosting. And we'll talk to you then. We'll see you with a lot of other interesting
Great.
folks.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Bruce.
Hello, I'm Bruce Berman, the host of Understanding IP Matters, the critically acclaimed series that provides leading innovators and experts the space to share their IP story, the good, the bad, and the incredible. Understanding IP Matters is brought to you by the nonprofit Center for Intellectual Property Understanding, with the generous support of its partners and sponsors. Subscribe on the platform of your choice or email us at explore@understandingip.org. Content provided is for informational purposes only and does not represent the views of CIPU or its affiliates. This episode was produced for CIPU by Podsonic. Thank you for listening.